Well, hello, my friends, and welcome to a brand new episode of Dunswell Zoo. I hope you've all been well. I hope you haven't missed me too much. I've been gone for a couple of weeks. I was planning to go for a couple of weeks, don't worry. I just went to change things up a bit, give myself a break from content creation, because as much as I love Planet Zoo, recording and editing and stuff like that, it is. I do find it a bit boring, to be honest. The editing side of things, and the recording side can be a little bit difficult when you're in the flow of building. But we shall persevere, and I have returned. So I hope you're all well. I am also well. So we're starting this episode with a little bit of a live section, then there'll be the speed build, and then it'll probably just move on to the next episode. Like last time, there was no live section afterwards, but when the tropical pack came out, I posted a poll on the community tab for the sloth walkthrough exhibit. So if you remember in the last episode, I spent absolutely ages creating a sloth habitat very similar to this one here, the brown-throated three-toed sloth. When it was a habitat animal, it's now an official exhibit animal, so this is going to get changed out. I've already checked, the walkthrough exhibit fits in this blueprint perfectly. So it's just going to be a case of ripping the insides out and then restructuring it around that. But yeah, so a habitat like this, but for two-toed sloth. And I built it, and it was a bloody pain in the ass to build it, quite frankly. And then Leaf, Good Boy, and a couple of others, I can't remember who though, they're working on a two-toed sloth mod for the exhibit to function separately. So you can have a three-toed sloth or the two-toed sloth, but it doesn't replace the other one, if you understand what I mean. So I was looking at it and I thought, okay, well, can we make it a walkthrough? And the answer to that was technically yes. So I wasn't sure, so I asked you guys, and you guys voted, sort of overwhelmingly voted for a walkthrough exhibit instead. So it is a walkthrough exhibit now. We're just waiting for the mod to be released, and this is what I've done essentially. So the corridor was here. I've now shifted that forward one because the footprint was too small for the walkthrough exhibit. You can see here, that's how wide it is, whereas there was an internal corridor. But there's now an external corridor, and to sort of keep the nocturnal vibe, because this habitat, just this one here, that's going to be a nocturnal one. So we've kept it quite dark in here. We've put these screens up, so there's minimal light coming through. Of course, the light coming through here won't be coming through. Oops, that's an Amazon email. Do you excuse me? There will be a blocked roof here. It won't be open, so there won't be any light coming in because it's going to be nocturnal. And this is currently where I've got the staff access coming in here. So I need to seal this off with something, and we'll decide what to do with this space here. I've got a few ideas. I'm thinking like a little education sort of seating point for the sloths. Maybe not a seating point and just an education point where there's a talk that occurs talking about sort of the animals within the Expedition Ecuador. But yeah, I really like how it turns out, and I actually prefer this to what I built before. So it's just going to be a case of waiting until the mod releases and then seeing sort of what plants and structures we can get in there. What else was I going to say? Oh yeah, so it cuts off here, as you can see. This is the walkthrough footprint from this wall to this wall. Excuse this, there's nothing I can do about it really. It's the same at the other side, but it's the only way to get the smooth finish. So we've got this room back here to play with, so we could do like a planted backdrop, which I think would be quite nice. Because obviously the sloths won't be able to use this little 4x4 corridor back here. So we can do some pretty fun things with that, I think. So that's the two-toed sloth habitat. I don't know what species they're making it as. I don't know whether it's Hoffman's or Lynn's two-toed sloth. I'm fine with either, quite frankly. It was going to be Hoffman's what was going to be in here, but most zoos in the UK anyway have Lynn's two-toed sloth. And I've just done a little bit of planting with some of the new plants from the tropical pack. Not overly impressed with the plants from the tropical pack, gotta be honest. I was expecting way more than what we got in terms of planting. Really disappointed with the planting from the tropical pack. For those of you who haven't got the tropical pack yet, I'd definitely recommend getting it. The building pieces, I haven't had a chance to experiment with all of them yet, but the building pieces are amazing. But if I just go tropical pack, see that's bringing up tropical. So if I go on to filters, content pack, tropical pack, this is it. This is all we get for the plants. So we get Attenborough's pitcher plant small, Attenborough's pitcher plant pitcher small, pitcher, plant small, plant, basket fern 1, 2, 3, Rafflesia large, Rafflesia small, tetrastigma vine, and then we get the Crocopia sapling, which we didn't have before. That's in the free update. And some palms, if I recall correctly. Yes, just here. The Kentia palms. Of course, they're Oceania. So we've just got them sort of dotted around the outside. They're really nice, but there's nowhere near enough. I was expecting way more for the tropical pack in terms of planting. I was really disappointed with what we got in terms of planting. Either way, we shall press on. So this episode then, I'm probably going to do this Baird's tapir habitat. So there's going to be concrete lining around the edge here, leading into the water, and this little bamboo area, that's going to be the house, but we can potentially move that up one to hide the staff entrance. So they can have a slightly bigger house, because obviously the habitat's completely exposed in terms of viewing points. They've got nowhere to hide really. But I have put this tree in from ZSH Plays. Been watching a lot of his stuff lately. And it looks really nice. So that's sort of the theme I'm going to go with. Is it's not going to be particularly heavily planted, this habitat. But what planting there is going to be sort of really interesting planting. Like this sort of stuff with ivy and ferns, and yeah, it looks really cool. I'm just really a fan of that. So yeah, and then we'll put some plants along the back as well, because obviously we want it to look a bit interesting at the back. It looks a bit flat in a couple of places, so bring some rock work out a bit more. And then this sanded area is just a sort of example, if you like, of where I want the water. It's not necessarily going to be as big as this. Bear in mind that the tapir is that's too big. Is that inaccurate? Yeah. So we'll go for a golden one. If I recall correctly, this is a life-size tapir statue, this one. So this is sort of the size we're looking at. So I think the land area is sufficient. And they do look quite small when you think guests are going to be stood like here. But I like that. This habitat, this entire Habitat Expedition Ecuador is essentially an indoor jungle. So you want to feel quite small and quite overpowered by these massive trees and these massive natural sort of structures like waterfalls and rock formations and things like that. That's what I'm going for with this. So that will be the Baird's tapir. And then there's going to be Baird's tapir in here as well. Possibly, not 100% sure. I've just sort of earmarked that they're going to be in here. But there's also Colombian capuchin in here. And needs to put a gantry in there. And then we have our great curassow up at the front. That habitat's pretty much finished. It just needs the animals putting in really, and maybe a little bit of shelter if I can finagle something in this small space. Just a little sort of sheltered area, just to give them a little bit of privacy. But yeah, this episode is the Baird's tapir habitat. So let us begin the wild section. Wild section? What am I on about? Let us begin the live section. No, what the hell am I on about? It's not the live section. We're in the live section. We're going to jump into the speed build. I'm going to stop talking, because evidently I'm not very good at doing it. Here is the speed build for the Baird's tapir habitat. Please enjoy. So welcome to the speed build, my friends. Looking back on this, I probably could have sped it up a little bit more. This is 600 times faster than the original. It took ages building this. There was problems getting the angles to line up. There were issues with the new advanced move tool. There is a thread that I've created on the Frontier forums to try and get Frontier to add a toggle so that we can go back to the old advanced move tool. For those of us what are struggling with this new advanced move tool, because it's a little bit buggy, just misclicking and stuff like that. It's a bit of a pain in the ass, in all honesty. Anyway, with the habitat, I wanted to create a concrete lined pool. We are of course using plaster. It's just a bit of a nicer texture than the concrete. Yeah, I wanted it to be easy drain, easy clean, that sort of maintenance mindset, if you like. How can we make this as maintainable and as low maintenance as possible? And it would be to do it with concrete, or in this case in plaster. Bit of a pain trying to get everything to line up. I do eventually manage to do it. I had to end the recording, experiment with a few different methods, and eventually I do manage to find a way that works. There we go, you can see I finally got it. Yeah, I find a way that works. So yeah, at least I know how to do it in the future. It's not perfect, but it's pretty damn close, I'll say that much. So Baird's tapir then, they're actually not held in any UK or European zoos. It's only North American zoos and a couple of South American facilities. I wasn't able to find any detail on Asian zoos, but I'd imagine it's the same story. Baird's tapir doesn't seem to be particularly common in zoos outside of the Americas. Nonetheless, we have them here at Dunswell Zoo. We have a male and a female. You will get to see them this episode. It's the largest of the 3 species of tapir native to the Americas. The other 2, of course, being the mountain tapir and the lowland tapir, or the South American tapir, however you label. I call it the lowland tapir. It prefers to live in diverse vegetation habitats, so we're looking at mangrove forests, swamps, marshes, tropical rainforests, woodland, deciduous forest, cloud forest, secondary growth forests due to increased understory plants for foraging and protection. And I do talk about the plants a little bit later on, so I won't repeat myself. I think you're able to tell the Baird's tapir from other tapirs simply because of the cream markings that it has on it. Of course, the Malayan tapirs are white and black. The lowland tapirs are grey-ish, and the mountain tapirs are woolly. So that's your telltale with them. But Baird's tapirs have that cream-coloured marking on its face, and usually a dark spot on each cheek. I say usually. I've not seen a lot of them. In fact, I've not seen any of them, to be honest, so I'll just take it at face value. They, of course, like all tapirs, have that fleshy proboscis. We would call it its snout or its nose, perhaps even its trunk if you're so inclined. And they have 4 toes on each front foot and 3 toes on the back, which would be classed as an odd-toed ungulate, I believe. So they have 1 young at a time, generally, although there have been records of multiple births, the most recent of which in captivity was in the Franklin Park Zoo in Boston, and the parent had twins, so that's that. Of course, they have those telltale sort of camouflage patterns, those stripes and spots when they're first born to help them blend in with the foliage, and for the first week of their lives they're actually hidden, and the mother forages for food and returns periodically, and I've just sort of incorporated that in the indoor shelter that you're seeing here. So I've created a little separate area where the mother can take the infant away from the public and into a nice sort of dark, secluded, quiet area, and if need be we can even separate the male as well. So I'm just going ahead and creating that area now. Sexual maturity usually about between 6 months and 12 months, so half a year to a year. So when our infant grows up, we will either move it to another zoo, or we can potentially move it to the capuchin habitat. I say potentially because initially I was going to have it as a Baird's tapir and a capuchin habitat, but I've changed my mind and it's now just a capuchin habitat. And anyway, we'll get onto that another time. But Baird's tapirs can live for over 30 years, so we're going to have them for a while. Primarily nocturnal, but can be found active at all hours. Excuse me, my brunch seems to be trying to kill me. They use well-worn paths that zigzag through the thick undergrowth, and it forages for leaves and fallen fruits, things like that. They stay close to water and enjoy swimming and wading, particularly on hot days. They can often be seen resting in the water for hours with only their head above the water, and also when feeling like they're in danger they will also head for the water. And they poo in the water. Tapirs generally only poo in the water, which I find quite interesting. Baird's tapirs are primarily solitary, though small groups are not uncommon, it says here, and individuals, especially those with juveniles, mothers and young adults, are often observed together, and the animals communicate through shrill whistles and squeaks. So you do actually hear that in the game as well. They do form long-term monogamous pairs, and these pairs are known to defend territory. They can breed at any point through the year, so you're not forced to just put them together at certain times of the year. You can leave them together throughout the year, which is why we only have 1 pair in here. We have 1 male and 1 female, and they get along really well. There's been signs of breeding, but we haven't had a birth notification yet, but still pretty early days. They also have symbiotic relationships in the wild. So Baird's tapirs will allow the yellow-headed caracara, I believe I've said that correctly, to remove ticks. There's also been sightings of black vultures doing the same as well. And much like the Azara's agouti, the Baird's tapirs are seed dispersers. So they will eat seeds, and then they'll eat the fruit, and then they'll pass the seeds through their feces. And of course, it's a surefire way to get them to grow. So yeah, the Baird's tapirs, endangered. Conservationists would rather have the habitat protected and improved and maintained rather than ship them all off to zoos and wildlife parks and stuff. Captive breeding programs, however, are helpful, and we're coming up to the live section now, so I will disappear and I'll see you again in just a few minutes. Well, hello my friends, welcome to the live section. I did say earlier on that I didn't think there would be a live section, it'd probably just go into the next episode. I realised there's still quite a bit left to do, and I only really want to spend about 3 episodes on this at most. Well, we've already had one, this is the second one. So I'm going to show you the finished Baird's tapir habitat, and then we're going to go back into the speed build and we're going to do the concrete surrounds for the Capuchin Island, and that will probably be the end of this episode. And then the next episode we're going to do the rest of the Capuchin Island, which will be climbing structures, planting, food, etc. And put the roof on, which is probably going to be the biggest task. It's quite a big footprint and I want quite a custom roof. Anyway, let's show the finished Baird's tapir habitat. It's the first time we've ever been at ground level in this area. Get some amazing views from here. You can see a wall. And then we slowly ascend the ramp and you get your first view of the Baird's tapir. So I've got a male and a female. We've got a male called Otis who came from another zoo in the UK, and we have a female called Kate who came from a zoo in Germany. You can actually see one of them just swimming there. So this is their habitat. You can see they've got the waterfall over there. Maybe just needs tweaking down a little bit. Yeah, got the tapir taking a nice swim. I mean, look at that. You can't really ask for a better view when you're at the zoo, can you? Just a tapir having a swim. Wow. I'd be amazed if I saw this in a zoo. So we shall continue, because there is more. And then, of course, we get up to the flat level, and you'll be able to look either side. You'll have the Capuchins at this side, and you have the Baird's tapir, of course, at this side. Amazing views. I'm really happy with how this turned out. It's quite possibly one of my favourite habitat builds so far. As you'll have seen in the speed build, I really struggled getting the outside bits of the plaster to line up. But do it I did. I will not be beaten. So still undecided on whether I'm going to include Baird's tapir in here as well. Or whether it's just going to be Capuchins. I might just do Capuchins, to tell you the truth. I think that might be a slightly more interesting habitat to build, because we can really play with the vertical space of the habitat, whereas if it's with tapirs as well as capuchins, we've got to make sure that things are traversable for the tapirs and the capuchins, not just the capuchins. But yeah. Oh wow. Wow, 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 wow. I am in love with this habitat. I just absolutely love it. I really do. If I do say so myself, I know it's my own habitat, but I think this has turned out really, really cool. And I'm really happy with it. So the only place you can't really see them is here. And they just both happen to be down here. This is the only place you can't really see them. But I don't mind, you know, you've got all this other sort of viewing opportunity space. There you go, look, you can get both of them in one go. So my approach to the planting was keep it minimal and keep most of it out of reach of the tapirs because they just like munch on it. And that's pretty much what I've done. Of course, water hyacinth grows quite readily. So I've put a bit there, even though the tapirs probably wouldn't eat it, in all fairness. They'd probably just play with it. Yeah, we've got the scaviola bushes all up on the back to sort of break up this monotonous texture. But yeah, I just absolutely love this habitat. And then of course we have the capuchins at this side. We'll get around to that soon. Hi Frank. And I put a green roof on with the different thatch just because I wanted to mix things up a bit and keep it a bit interesting and also maintain that tropical theme and still sort of break up your line of sight to this bland texture at the back. And then of course once we get past Frank, we start to struggle a bit here because there's actually a path underneath us and explore mode can't differentiate between the two paths, which is unfortunate. Can I get around that? Nope, I have fallen into the path. Same problem, yep. We've fallen through the path. That's unfortunate. Anyway, while we're down here. So this is the staff access. Ooh, that's funky. Oh, that might be why it's glitched out a little bit. I can rectify that. Oh yeah, this is the staff area down here. Got a keeper hut and the tapir access. We of course go in. You saw this in the speed build. I've built a little custom area where you could shut off the female and the infant if need be for a little while. I just wanted something to make it look a little bit different. I was a bit bored of all the metal and the continuous sort of textures what were going on. I wanted something a bit different. And then we've got the sliding door. And then we've got the tapir. Sort of eye view little ducky over there. But yeah, they have access to all of this habitat. The only bit they can't use is just round this tree, I think. If we actually nip back and I bring this up. Yeah, so here, there's a couple of bits here. There's a couple of little bits here round this tree. It's having a poo. Always, every time I record, there's animals having a poo. Let's pause it really quick. We don't want any inbreeding occurring. And Tasmanian devil's been in a box for too long. We shall deal with that momentarily. So, if I just come out of explore mode, that's the Baird's tapir habitat. So let's just check. So they need 486. I've given them 1,117. And they need 56 for swimming. And I've given them 677. Excuse me, it's my Shreddies. It's a cereal, before anybody says anything. If you don't know what Shreddies are, it's a cereal. I know Shreddies is also a sort of other name for underwear. I haven't been eating underwear, I've been eating cereal. So they've got more than enough room, which is exactly what I wanted. And I was a little bit concerned that they'd feel lost in this habitat, but they don't. It suits them really well. Like, you can see them, and it looks sort of very zoo-like, but also very natural at the same time. And that's exactly the look I was going for. And I'm super happy with how it's turned out. So, probably gonna drain the water for the next bit, because it's going to be tricky doing it with the water. But we're going to put the concrete sort of lining around this central island, leaving a space, of course, for a little gantry that will connect for the staff access. There isn't going to be a shelter as such for the capuchins. If any capuchins needed to be taken for segregation or medical attention, they would just be removed from the habitat and taken to the vet surgery, which is down here. So no need to put a shelter or anything in, but yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and drain the water, put the concrete lining in, adjust the stones, the rockwork as necessary to hide any of the sort of natural looking textures. Nothing I can do about this, unfortunately. This stuff I can, but not this, because that's where the staff door is going to go. And yeah, then the next episode we will be fleshing out the Capuchin Island. Adding the capuchins, planting this area down here, which is going to be really difficult. And adding the Great Curacao, and the doors and the roof. There's a lot to do. So I shall leave you all with the final speed build for this part of the episode, and that is, of course, for the Colombian capuchins. Until then, my friends, stay safe, stay kind, and bye-bye for now. So we're now back with the speed build. I hope you enjoyed my little live section. This one was a little easier to do in terms of the concrete lining, just because we weren't dealing with angles. It was just sort of straight down. So still, there were issues. It looked a bit too square, because obviously I was working with angle snap. But I do sort of spruce it up a little bit. We had some smaller pieces to get some curves in there, and just to make it look a little bit more natural. But we do still want it to look like it's a zoo exhibit, don't we? So going back to the Baird's tapir then. Crocodiles, jaguars, pumas, that's mainly their natural threats. Humans do hunt the Baird's tapirs, even though the hunting of Baird's tapirs is illegal. However, the laws to protect the Baird's tapir and the laws to enforce that protection are very poorly, if at all, monitored, unfortunately. So they can be found with the Colombian capuchin, and obviously, as I've mentioned in the previous few moments, the plan was to have the Baird's tapir, a second pair, and the capuchins together. I've now decided to just go for the capuchins, just because it's a nicer... I was really struggling with that advanced move there. It's a nicer habitat to create. It's an easier habitat to create. We can play more with the vertical space, which is something I've not really ever done before. I tend to just build large habitats in terms of footprints. So to actually build upwards is going to be really interesting and really fun, and I can't wait to do that. Of course, the majority of the animals in this building are either endangered or near threatened. The capuchins are, I want to say, endangered. The Baird's tapirs are endangered. The great curassow, near threatened. And of course the two-toed sloth would be least concern. So yeah, really big build actually this. It's taken a while. This took 3-4 days, something like that. Bear in mind I wasn't working on it from waking up to falling asleep at night. But we're talking about spending a good, what, if I had to guess, 6 to 8 hours probably, with an hour or so break in the middle, a day, and it took about 4 days in total. That's not including the editing and the voiceover. Yeah, it's a pretty big build, and we're still nowhere near finished really. I was going to say why have I stopped here, but I remember why I've stopped. There was a knock at the door, because of course this is sped up by 600. I'll just check how long's left. Just about 2 minutes, so I'll start wrapping up. So this has been the Baird's tapir, and sort of starting on the Capuchin Island. Thank you for watching. Thank you for the continued support, and I hope to see you again next time for the third and final part of this build, Expedition Ecuador. We will of course be fleshing out the Capuchin Island, plants, climbing structures, all that good stuff. Until then, stay safe, stay kind. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at JW_YT. And I shall see you all next time, my friends. Bye for now.